Today on Context, the public and private struggles of families affected by autism.
It affects 1 in every 88 kids, boys more than girls, and there is no cure. Autism remains one of the least understood of human conditions. Today, we'll swap myth for fact as Lorna gets first-hand insights, including a field guide to symptoms and resources, as we explore the difficulties, the hope, and the hidden joys involved in raising a child with autism.
Autism affects the lives of more than 1 million Canadians, including their family members, and it's a complex disability that remains a mystery to researchers, but we're learning more about it. And so to help us understand the basics and give us a family perspective, we're joined by Margaret Spolstra, the Executive Director of Autism Ontario, and from Edmonton, Alberta, Member of Parliament Mike Lake and his son, Jaden. Mike, let's start with you. What is all involved in being a parent with autism?
That's a big question. I think we could take up the whole show probably talking about that. But I think, for most families, what we would think about first is just those initial stages when you're learning that there's something going on with your child and you don't know what it is yet. And, you're trying to explore, you're trying to do as much reading as you can, and you're just looking for answers. And, then autism is a full life deal. People with autism live as long of lives as you or I would live.
You brought Jaden along in our interview. Jaden, I don't know if you want to tell us about your symptoms, or Mike, if you want to tell us about his symptoms, but help us understand the autistic person.
Well, Jaden's nonverbal, so he's 19 years old right now, and when he communicates, he communicates either in writing, or if he wants to communicate verbally, he'll often communicate things that he wants to say by saying ba 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 ba.
Ba 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 ba.
You can hear him
ba, ba, ba.
doing that. So if Jaden oftentimes will be sitting in the back seat if I'm driving, and all of a sudden I'll hear him make a sound like that and trying to get my attention. And usually he's tapping the window at the same time because he wants me to look at a cow in a field, or a train that's going by, or an airplane in the sky that he's noticed and sort of wants to share with me.
Well, we're going to go now to Margaret here on set. World Autism Awareness Day is coming up. Why is it so important we start breaking some barriers about understanding what's really going on in autism?
Well, having a day like World Autism Awareness Day on April 2 is so important for Canadians to understand the nature of autism, the impact it has on families, and also the amazing people, understanding who the amazing people with autism are. There's such a wide range of individuals in terms of how their symptoms are expressed, in terms of what their capabilities are. And we have a saying in autism that's, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
Yeah, and media, our world of media has put out some stereotypes there. You think of Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory, you think of Rain Man, and all of these clever pieces. They don't really always give us an accurate picture, do they, what the media perceptions are, do they?
Exactly. As a society, we try to understand what's complex or unusual or different. And so we try to sometimes create boxes around what that means for understanding. But if you get to know people, you discover they may have some unusual characteristics. They may or may not be able to speak. The words that they use may not be typical, but they are always going to be, first of all and foremost, a child in a family, an individual who has potential, and someone who is a citizen and has the right to be supported in the context of our society.
Yeah, and someone who is a citizen. Okay, let's go to our Member of Parliament now. Mike, I've just been watching sort of out of the corner of my eye. You're navigating that very real thing that social skills are the key deficit for people with autism. What's your advice for how to handle the social skills deficit in public?
Well, of course, that is a challenge, but, and that's part of why we do what we do in terms of trying to raise awareness. We want to raise awareness. I don't want Jaden to be labeled as simply having autism. Jaden is so much more than autism. He's a unique individual with unique skills and abilities, and yes, there are challenges and barriers and obstacles that we need to overcome, particularly at the social level. But we also need to be able to see the potential that he has. And for Jaden, you know, he's easy to underestimate. You know, if you see him here in the interview, and he's very warm and engaging, but you might miss the, you know, the incredible skill that he has working in a library, for example. You know, he's like a 3 or 4-year-old in a 19-year-old's body oftentimes, but when you see him in the library, he's like a superstar. You know, he has the library almost kind of mapped out in his mind, and you know, can do everything from taking the books in from the bin to, you know, scanning them in the computer to, you know, putting them in order and then running them out to the shelves, so he can do it faster than almost anybody else can do.
Wow. And so, Margaret, this is like being a detective, right? A parent has to be a detective to find out who is the person inside my autistic child. Give us your advice for how they do that.
Well, I think from the very beginning, parents love their children and know their children better than anyone else. And then from that point, they start to ask questions when they see their children developing differently, some skills that may not emerge very quickly or emerge differently. And so those families are then looking to professionals for their advice and their help.
Okay, so let's talk about the stress. Like, it is, as you said, it can be a full-time job. Well, it is a full-time. It is a full. So help us understand the stress the parents are experiencing.
Well, I think, you know, for any family, when you see your child and you see them not developing in the way that perhaps if you've had another child and you're saying something's not quite happening, I'm not seeing this child engage with me in the same way. As they go forward, they are faced with all kinds of issues. Judgment of people around them who don't understand their child, having to be on waiting lists for services and intervention, having to be a detective about understanding about autism, about the wide range of expression, in not understanding why their child might be behaving in the way that they are, and wanting to make sure that their child has absolutely everything that they need to learn and to thrive.
Yeah. And there's been such an increase in the incidence of autism over the last 15 years. And we still yet don't really know what it is in our genetics. It certainly isn't caused by vaccinations. It certainly isn't caused by allergies. And there are also underlying medical conditions as well that can be bothering a child, correct?
Right, so we do. We see, I think the information about the genetics of autism is exploding. And we have some top researchers in Canada, Dr. Steve Scherer, among many others, who are leading the way and helping us to understand what's happening. And what we're learning is that we know that there's a variety of factors. The genetics are very strong, but there's also environmental conditions that we're not sure what that interplay is between the genetics and environment that results in a child who has what we call autism. But what they're really discovering is that each child with autism really is unique. So what we've been experiencing in that wide range of expression is what we're learning about the genetics as well, is that each child is their own unique person who has a collection of genetics that makes them who they are, in part.
Mike, I want to go to you now, to you and Jaden, because I think there's a lot of parents who would like to be as close to their 19-year-old son as you two are emotionally. And you do this as a commuter dad. You live in Edmonton, but you work in Ottawa as a member of Parliament. How have you managed?
I think, you know, I think with Jaden, one of the keys is people with autism are very concrete. So with Jaden, he needs to know where I'm at. He needs to know sort of when he's going to see me again, and he's okay with that. But I would say this too, in regards to what Margaret said. You know, when you see Jaden, you are only seeing one person, and Jaden, in many ways, is easier to deal with than many people that we would label as higher functioning or lower functioning. You know, in some cases, folks at the higher functioning end of the spectrum really, you know, they have that trouble with social interaction. Yet in many other ways, they're you know, they might be engineers or, you know, really good at working with numbers and in the university system or something like that, and really having to deal with mental health issues and things like that because they know they're different and they get picked on because they're not different enough, not as different as Jaden might be, but different enough that they get picked on. Hopefully less and less in our society as we advance. But I know, looking back, when I look back to my teenage years and I think of some kids that I went to high school with that wouldn't have had a label of autism attached to them, but I understand that they would be somewhere on that spectrum, and some of those kids were bullied mercilessly. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have You have people who are maybe lower functioning, you know, maybe not able to interact in the way that Jaden interacts in this way. People who, you know, they really have a hard time in almost any kind of stimulus environment. So whether it be auditory or whether it be sort of the visual environment or dealing with things touching them. And for those people, it can be 24/7, just a constant bombardment of stimulus, and their response to that is just completely overwhelmed. And you know, as a society, we might come into interaction for half an hour at a time with that family, and maybe help them out, maybe try to understand. But you got to realize that family's dealing with that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time, and it can be incredibly difficult for those families. And those supports that Margaret works so hard and that Autism Ontario works so hard to provide, to advocate for, those are crucial to those families.
Okay, so Margaret, if we are concerned about our child's development and the possibility that this might be autism, what are the first steps I should take?
The first thing you need to do is speak with your doctor and hopefully be persistent. Understand what some of the early symptoms are, some of the early signs, and talk with your doctor about what you're seeing or not seeing in your child's development. And your doctor will be able to then refer typically to a developmental pediatrician or a neurologist or a psychiatrist who can then further assess that child's abilities and to tease out whether this is autism or maybe it's something else. So to do that sooner than later is really important. Then the second thing really is to get someone who has good information that you can rely on. And that's going to be both professionals, but other family members as well, who have been down this path and understand this journey intimately. Wow. So having both professional supports and the connection with other people in the community is vitally important so that you get to where you need to go and to get the treatment intervention and other services that can help you as a family and help your child grow.
Well, we actually do have several families in the audience with their own personal experience who want to join in on this discussion. So Sheldon, you're with someone very special there.
That's right, Lorna. I'm here with Dee Gordon, mother of Jacob, who lives with autism. And Dee, you walked from Toronto to Ottawa to raise awareness and help for families with autism. We want to know a little bit more about your story.
Well, I walked to Ottawa from my home in North Etobicoke, which was over 500 kilometers. This was a journey that no parent should have to take. And
it was symbolic to you of how frustrating and hard it is to look for resources for autism. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And one of the most important things for me as a parent is that I have 3 children. And Jacob is actually the youngest. And my other children are 12 years older. But when I had Jacob, he didn't want to be held. It was really hard giving him a bath. He didn't like water touching his skin. It was like it was violating him. There was just so many things that was a real struggle, like breastfeeding that I did with my other children. It took him 4 months to learn how to do that.
You hoped that when you went to Ottawa, you would be able to get the government to make this part of the national strategy. Mike, I want to ask you, how realistic is that the federal government can actually help put autism on the agenda?
Well, I think it is on the agenda. I mean, there's challenges with jurisdictions. So, of course, most of the challenges that we deal with, whether it's treatment on the health side, whether it's the education system or the social services system, delivery of those all happens at a provincial level. Of course, the federal government transfers money to the provinces for the delivery of that. But certainly at the federal level, there's there are areas that we focus on. For example, Margaret mentioned research, and we have some of the top researchers in the world taking a look at autism, including Stephen Shearer. But we do have researchers across the country in all parts of Canada that are doing world-leading research, surveillance, so that we get a little bit better handle on what the numbers are, particular to Canada. We're working at the federal level on a world-class surveillance system. Vocational opportunities. The federal government invests a significant amount of money in training programs and things like that. In fact, actually, in the last federal budget, we funded a couple of different programs that have significant impact for families living with autism. This idea of a pan-Canadian framework or a pan-Canadian strategy is something that Dee's advocating for, is something and that's really important to make sure that a family in Ontario is getting the same type of treatment that a family, or at least the same quality of treatment that a family in BC or Alberta would be getting.
Amazing to hear from all of you as parents. And Margaret, we appreciate you championing the needs of autism through Autism Ontario. Mike Lake and Jaden there in Edmonton, and Dee here in our studio. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Coming up, Hannah's story, a child with autism and her mother's love and faith. Missed an episode? Catch up with our podcasts. Get up to date on the latest conversations from beyond the headlines. Simply go to our website, click on our link to find current and past podcasts on iTunes. It's free, don't delay. Lorna's Books, your chance to win a book that helps you go deeper on today's topic. So for autism, we've got a selection by Mother Michelle Sim. My Son, My Gift, Living with Autism Spectrum Disorder. Insightful book that takes you on an honest journey of parenting autism and doing so with hope. So click on contextwithlorna.com and go over to Lorna's Books for your chance to win a free copy of My Son, My Gift.
This segment is brought to you by Bruce Etherington and Associates, Family Harmony and Philanthropy, helping you help others.
Today we're discussing life with autism, what it's like and how it affects families. And our next guest knows both the demands and delights of parenting a child with autism. Please welcome Karen Fawcett-Henkel to Context. Great to have Karen with us today. Hi, Karen. Thank you. Thanks for being with us. Wow. We got to know your story because of the documentary, Hannah's Story, and she was your fourth child.
Yes.
When did you first start to notice signs that something's not right here?
Yeah. Hannah missed all of her milestones. So she didn't sit up when she needed to sit up. She wasn't crawling when she should have been crawling. I had four daughters in 5 years. So I was very familiar with what it needed to look like. And Hannah did not hit any of those milestones that she should have.
And when the doctors told you Hannah was developmentally delayed, your first thought was, this is just a matter of time, right? You'll get better.
Yeah,
Autism
the word
doesn't get better.
autism didn't even come up. And the doctor, who was a GP, I'm sure was very hesitant to give that kind of a diagnosis to a family. And so she said, developmentally delayed. And I thought, okay, that's no big deal. You know, we'll get her up and running in no time at all.
Well, it was a very big deal. We've got a clip from the documentary that was made about Hannah. Take a look at this. It'll take you down memory lane.
She couldn't tell you what she wanted. Hannah's only way to communicate with us at that time was screaming. And she did that all the time. She screamed and screamed and screamed and bit herself and would hit her, knock her head. And, you know, it was like living on eggshells.
So that's what mothering was like. How
Yes.
did you find the child inside of her? After, past the behavior, but in there.
Yeah, well, you know, I was told that there would be a place that Hannah would end up. I was told that she would most likely not have any language, that I was told everything that wouldn't be possible for her. And I knew that if that was going to be the case, that I would wind up there, but I wasn't going to start there. So I just worked ahead, knowing as a mom, I thought, I've got to work at this. I've got to do everything I know to do. If that's where I wind up, that will be okay. But I couldn't just accept what was being told to me without trying to do everything I knew possible.
So you did all kinds of behaviors and treatments and therapies.
We did the ABA therapy with Hannah, which is it's intensive one-on-one therapy that we learned actually when we started to do it. It was not being done in Canada, or it was being done by just a few families. So we actually got trained in the States and came back, put together our own program. And then as we were committed to this, professionals began to come on board with us.
But it took you starting and
Yes.
getting your friends and your
Yeah.
family and volunteers. And I want to just show another clip from the piece because children can, exhibit unmanageable behavior.
Yes.
And you had this piece in the documentary where you went, you had hour-long tantrums during the ABA therapy,
Yes.
and then sleepless nights for weeks on end. You would sometimes have to ask, quote, 300 times to do something. We've got another clip of that kind of frustration. Take a look at this.
Every day was an endurance test. You just, you just coped. I mean, I used to say I really did. I used to say to God, is it not enough that I have this child who is so difficult all day long? Do I have to have it all night long too?
And so you would knock on God's door and say, why, how, help? What help did you get from Jesus in such anguish?
I think it boils down to a very root belief that you have to believe in the value of a human life, regardless of what their capabilities are or are not. When you have that kind of value system inside of you that says, I don't understand this, but I know that she is beyond worth to God, it makes you go through the days. It makes you just, like I can hardly even explain what that was like. 20% have a sleep disorder, autism.
But you saw the image of God in Hannah, even though it was so different than you expected.
Well, I was a very goal-oriented, career-minded woman before I had Hannah. And so for me, my children all had very high expectations on them. And I have this little girl who is most likely not going to do a whole lot of measurable anything. And it made me change exactly who I was. I realized that my whole focus on what makes somebody important and of value was all wrong. Even as a Christian, I had this very, very warped idea of what gave somebody value.
And so what did give Hannah value in your eyes?
The fact that she is made in the image of God. She possesses a spirit, a soul, a mind, a body, all these things that like we looked at Mike and his son, such small little bits he can give back, but guess what? That's enough. Hannah just has to show up and be who she is. That's what gives her value. Do I push for more all the time? Absolutely. But does that mean that she's any more special than she was yesterday? Not at all.
Well, we want to thank Hannah for being in the audience today. And I think our cameras have a beautiful shot of Hannah there with her sister TJ and your husband. Hannah, you're 23, you're employed, and you also work as an artist. Here's some of your beautiful work, Hannah, that you have drawn. And what has Hannah taught you about love, about the love of God?
Wow. Hannah has taught me that religious systems will make you perform. God does not make you perform. God loves you with no performance attached. That is the biggest thing that Hannah has taught me about who God is.
That's beautiful. Karen, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Thank you. And Hannah, thank you for coming. And thank you for drawing and for being who you are. Karen Fawcett Henkel, an inspiring story, mom to 4 girls, including Hannah. And we should mention, many of those years you did that as a single mother. Yes. And and you had to support the girls as well. So you know what it is to really parent through the challenges of autism. Thank you for sharing that with us today. Sheldon, over to you now for a question for our audience at home.
Thank you so much, Lorna. We have a question for those of you parenting a child with special needs. What is the most challenging or rewarding part of it? And what do you wish other people understood about raising special needs kids? Send your answers by any of the means you see there on the screen, or why don't you give us a call at 1-800-215-4913. Write to us as well at comments@contextwithlorna.com. Find us on Facebook and Twitter, as well as at Context TV. That's on Facebook and Twitter if you're there. We see, hear, and we appreciate every message.
Coming up, some thoughts on autism, the struggle and the gift.
I'm Rose Meter. I'm a mom, a wife, and an ER doctor in rural Canada. This year, my husband Rob and I have decided to take our 4 kids on a trip around the world. We have no idea what lies ahead. I'll be updating our journey on the Context with Lorna Duick website with blog posts and videos about our triumphs and trials and adventures. Won't you join us?
Here at Context, we love to hear from you, our viewers at home. Recently, David wrote, "Your show is ridiculous. Hopefully no tax dollars are funding this garbage." Well, David, you'll be happy to know that our show is entirely funded by our viewers. And we'd like to take this opportunity to say how much we appreciate your donations to help us share Christian stories. Thank you for helping us make television we can all be proud of. Well, everyone except for David. Our hope is that stories, articles, and programs like this one help draw out the mystery of autism, and that by meeting people, just as you have on this episode, who live and cope with autism, and do so often through the lens of Christian faith, you might be struck by 2 things. One is the immensity of time, energy, and resources required just to navigate each day. Let's help them in any way we can. And the other is the amount of God-given strength within the daily struggle. And it's amazing, not new. I love it how 2,000 years ago, Paul wrote to an early church who was struggling and said, "For whatever the hardship, God actually provides the strength that you will require." So for all of the hardships that people face, it's interesting to ask people who are coping with autism that how does God's love and presence become evident? And you know, when we want to say, well, where is God when things get so tough? Spend time with people such as those you've met here today, and you'll soon realize that the answer is God is nearer than ever. So for all of us at Context, I'm Lorna Duick. Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to our website to find the links we've got there on autism and how you can connect to the help that you need. And as Sheldon said earlier, we'd love to hear your challenges on parenting through special needs. So thank you for joining us, and join us next week again as we explore life beyond the headlines.
What we need to know about autism is they're very unique human beings. So we call them gifted. We believe every child is gifted. So our organization is also called Gifted People Services. So we strongly, strongly recommend kids can be integrated in the normal developed classrooms and the schools. And we also focusing on discovering their potentials. I would say a lot of people tend to underestimate kids with autism, but we need to find out their talents.
Since he's born and I find out he has autism, he makes me strong. I can fight for him, I can do anything for him. So over the 6 years, everywhere I fight for him. He's the gift of God. That's what I can tell. He's a loving child. I'm so glad, I'm so happy, like he is in my life.
It's not too late to send us your comments, voicemail, email, Facebook, or Twitter. The conversation continues.